Hello, welcome. We're going to get a few minutes or a moment here to make sure people can have a chance to log in. So we'll be with you in just a moment. So let's get started. Hello, welcome. You are listening to the Pure Strategies Conversations webinar series. We are so excited to offer these unique discussions to help you transform your business to create a more sustainable future. I'm Melanie Fleming, Marketing Manager for Pure Strategies. Welcome. Our team provides sustainability consulting to companies looking to develop goals, enhance their sustainability programs, and implement changes in their products, packaging, and supply chains. We are offering these webinars to help companies advance environmental and social performance in their business, helping to show you the possibilities for change and empower you with insights from those at the very forefront. You can find our past webinars, research reports, and resources on our website, purestrategies.com, including information about work we have done for Seventh Generation, Walmart, Ben & Jerry's, and other sustainability leaders. During the next 30 minutes, you will hear from Cheryl Baldwin, our VP of Sustainability Consulting for Pure Strategies. In addition to working with our clients, developing and executing sustainability strategies, Cheryl has authored several books, including The 10 Principles of Food Industry Sustainability. Cheryl will be talking today with Jami Lewchik, Head of TAZO and Portfolio Sustainability at Ekaterra Americas. Jami is responsible for the programs and goals desired to help realize the brand vision. Together, they will explore TAZO's environmental and social aims and how the transition of its tea portfolio to regenerative fits in, including the recent unveiling of TAZO Regenerative, a relaunch of 4 of the brand's original tea blends. We aim to have time at the end of their conversation to cover your questions. The audience will be muted, so please provide your questions in the Q&A or chat fields. I'll ask as many questions as time will allow. The recording of this session will also be posted on the Pure Strategies website. And now, over to you, Cheryl.
Great, thank you, Melanie, and welcome, Jami. It's great to have you. It's wonderful to see you as well, so thank you. So to maybe kick us off, maybe it'd be helpful just to give us a quick intro onto the TAZO brand and the products.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me, Cheryl. I always love getting a chance to connect with you, and this is really fun. I am thrilled to showcase TAZO today. It's a tea brand that's been around since the early 90s. It was founded by quite a visionary individual, Steve Smith, back in 1994 in the Pacific Northwest, and it was sold to Starbucks in the late 90s, and then eventually was acquired by Unilever in 2017. That's where I came to, I like to joke TAZO was my birthday present. We actually signed the deal the day before my birthday. And so I'm thrilled to now see the transition of the TAZO brand, which many people still know and love from Starbucks, into a new chapter of its life.
And we are going to dive into that new chapter today. So thank you for that quick intro. Melanie mentioned that there were some of the products that you've been making for a while kind of relaunched this year. So love to just hear more about that, because it's really connected to the topic that we're going to dive into on regenerative. So what spurred TAZO to make this change, and tell us more about what that involved?
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I mean, as you know, Cheryl, because you've been such a huge part of this journey, about a little over 2 years ago, we said to ourselves, as a company, we have a bit of a moral obligation to repair some of the harm that's been done by business as usual. And so through the help of Pure Strategies, we did take a look at our social and environmental footprint. And we discussed amongst ourselves, where we thought we could make the most impact, and felt really passionately it was about addressing the intersection of the climate crisis and the harm that that's causing to communities, especially marginalized communities around the world. With that, we learned about the approach of regenerative agriculture, and I know we're going to get more into that later. But when we said, how can we ultimately transition our business to a model that is based on fair trade, regenerative practices and principles, and organic practices and principles, we knew we had to start somewhere. And so we chose 4 of our original blends that have existed since the 1990s. Awake, which is a wonderfully robust sort of malty black tea, an English breakfast style tea. Zen, which is a pretty unexpected twist on green tea that has lemongrass and mint to it as well. Chai, and of course, chai having another really robust black tea base, but with fantastic spices like cinnamon and cardamom. And then Darjeeling, an exquisite single origin blend, which is known as the champagne of teas. We took those 4 blends and we converted them to be regenerative organic.
So regenerative organic. So how does that play out for the products? And then as you're thinking about a brand, you told us a little bit about the brand's like journey. Is that embedded also in how you're looking to function as a business too? Is there like a connection between the 2 things, the product and the brand?
There definitely is. So it's important to go beyond simply the products and into the entire practices of the brand. So, you know, we are looking at our supply chain, ensuring that there is attention paid throughout to just and equitable practices, not just paying a living wage, but also whether it's in our own core brand team or in our partners, you know, how are we ensuring that there's diverse representation amongst our team? We are also looking at our packaging. So packaging is a key pillar to this as well. We're setting ambitious targets to reduce packaging waste and to also reduce the amount of packaging in our products by up to 30%. Then those are just 2 examples.
So kind of back to the products that you launched this year that are regenerative organic, they've got organic certification, fair trade certification, Rainforest Alliance certification, and there's more to it. Can you dive a little bit deeper and tell us more about what it took to be able to call these products regenerative?
Yes. So it's funny, the box looks a little bit like a NASCAR hood with the certification symbols on it, but it's really important to consumers to know that they can trust the work that a brand is doing, and that if we're making claims that there is some independent certification to back that up. We felt that this was the right approach. We didn't want to be grading our own homework. It is a lot more work though. So when you're ensuring that there is a fair trade premium being paid to the growers, to the communities that are involved in the supply chain, it's important to have that. In our case, it's Fair Trade USA as our partner entity. But as there is with organic certification, there's a bit of a chain of custody there. You have to work with your suppliers to ensure that everything is properly in place. And then we have to make sure that whether it's from the field to the factory to the finished product, that we have all of our I's dotted and our T's crossed. We also know that it can be hard for farmers to go those extra steps to get the certification. And I'm sure this is something that you've seen. And I don't want to say that certification is an end all be all by any means. There are many reasons why it is challenging and potentially even onerous on farmers and suppliers to obtain some of these third-party certifications. And we do recognize that there are very real disparities then in who's able to achieve that certification and command that higher price premium and that, you know, greater market interest in their product. So that is one of the reasons why we were so thrilled to partner with the Rodale Institute and to raise $250,000 for them um, to support the journey of some of these farmers to make those transitions.
Yeah, so it sounds like for these products, there was this certification, but also an opportunity identified to build more capacity to be able to meet the kind of the ongoing need for these products. But you also have plans for the rest of the line, right?
We do. So this was about 35 to 40% of our tea bag volume in terms of like these are top selling items, right? These were original items that you see on almost every shelf where you see TAZO. So we started with the heavy hitters. We are going to continue. And so coming this year, well, 2023, I'm already a step ahead in my mind, but coming in 2023, we will be moving hopefully up to 80% of our tea bag portfolio. And then in 2024, our liquid tea mixes, our concentrates, where you can make iced tea or lattes really easily at home. We're going to be transitioning them as well to regenerative organic. And then ideally the entire portfolio will follow 2025 and beyond.
Wow. So the whole portfolio is making a switch. So you said the term regenerative organic, and we've used it a few times. For the first products, we've talked about how it's several certifications, and there's also some supply chain work to verify that additional practices are in place. So we know that there's other programs out there. There's the regenerative organic certification. Is that what we're talking about when you're talking about regenerative organic, or how is the lingo working out as you're looking at the claims and the certifications moving forward?
Yep. We were really excited by the framework that the Regenerative Organic Alliance offers, and that is the Regenerative Organic certification that you mentioned. We were ahead of ourselves a bit in that there aren't enough tea gardens, there isn't enough supply of some of the ingredients that we would need that are yet regenerative organic certified. That being said, we are definitely working with them, supporting their Allies Fund. They've been a fantastic partner as well. And I really definitely want to thank you for helping connect some of the dots with the Regenerative Organic Alliance so that we were able to learn from them to explore how they've approached an ingredient like tea to say, okay, what are the pillars that are required? We needed the organic certification, the fair trade status for these items. We needed to also ensure that the regenerative agriculture practices were followed. So conserving nature, protecting biodiversity, monitoring soil health. These were all very important, and I'm just top lining here. The end goal would be that TAZO becomes regenerative organic certified by the Regenerative Organic Alliance. And again, this is simply, I think, the easiest way to put it all together, both for consumers and suppliers. It's one audit then, it's one cohesive certification. It will be a journey to get there, and we're excited to partner with them and partner with you on the way.
Yeah, so you mentioned consumers. So I'd love to hear a little bit more from your perspective. So you've had the products out for just a couple of weeks now. How are they responding? Do they understand this regenerative term? Like, what are the questions that they have for you?
It's a great question because I think if you ask even industry experts, if you ask 10 of them, what does regenerative mean? You get 12 definitions. And so first and foremost, I want to say this isn't something that I made up, that I defined, or that any one person can gatekeep, because so many of these practices and principles really go back centuries, millennia, even to indigenous practices. And this is not something that farmers today simply discovered, or that manufacturers like myself simply discovered. So it's important to note that. I think that it is important to know as well that even our consumers are passionate about green causes, the environment, even maybe like stirring things up a bit with their legislators and their communities to really ensure that people and planet are protected. That is the core belief system of most of our TAZO fans. Even amongst those people who are really engaged in environmental issues, regenerative is still a new concept. And so we had a lot of fun. We did a TikTok video, as you do these days, or at least that's what my kids tell me, but we did a TikTok video, put it out there to try and explain what we mean by regenerative. So again, everything from things like providing wildlife and pollinator habitats on the farms to the fact that we're looking to reduce energy use through our supply chain and reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. And we filmed the ad in a, a new and different way, and used that to draw attention to what we mean by regenerative and to help start that conversation.
And what's been the response? Have there been questions, support, like interest? Where are consumers kind of connecting at this point?
I think it's been overwhelmingly positive, and I'm just thrilled by that. More than anything, one of our deepest fears was, what if we get this wrong? What if we start and we do it wrong and we have to backtrack? And I'm sure there will still be moments where we do get things wrong. And I know there's a ton of room for us to continue to improve. It is a roadmap. It is a journey. We're not there yet. And I think consumers have really embraced that and have appreciated the fact that we're trying, that we're taking the first step, and that these are meaningful first steps, and that we are partnering with some heavy hitters to be sure that there's teeth to what we're trying to accomplish and that we're holding ourselves accountable to it. One of the ways that we're doing that is by partnering with 1% for the Planet and committing to give 1% of our sales back to organizations that, like the Rodale Institute that I mentioned earlier, but give that 1% back to organizations that are working to, improve the future for the people and planet.
Yeah, good. It's great to hear that you're hearing a really positive response so far, which is what we hope for after all this work,
Yes.
that the consumers are understanding and also enjoying the product, as we all have been ourselves. So you mentioned the journey. So you also described a little bit about it, but maybe just backtrack a bit. So you've mentioned about 2 years ago, there was this process of starting to get a definition, like better figure out what really needs to be worked on to have like this credible approach towards a brand with purpose, and then reaching eventually, as we defined, towards a regenerative ambition. So we took this really close look at the business, dove in, looked at all the environmental and social hotspots to really hone in on what needs to be focused on. So there's these products, as we've talked a lot about, that have specific practices in place at the farm level. And you mentioned a little bit about packaging, but there's also more to the work that you guys are doing, because there's more to the need to address environmental and social issues. Are you able to share some of those other aims that TAZO's working towards to be more regenerative at this point?
Yeah, so it is just one, one piece of the puzzle, as you said, right? And so I think there are many different initiatives that we're working on, and across 7 key pillars. So I did touch on the fair trade as being one piece, but in general, we're looking to support livelihoods of the workers that are involved in our supply chain, and particularly with a focus on women. And we know that this is, in agricultural crops like tea, we know that there are a lot of women involved in the harvesting and in the plucking, and we want to be sure that women's safety is addressed. We're also looking at a variety of initiatives as it relates to climate. That's a key pillar for us as well, and including setting SBTI targets towards net zero. And then we are looking, as I said, with packaging to reduce our packaging, but also move to be fully compostable, recyclable, or reusable. And those are some of the ones that I think are going to keep us all busy for the next many months.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot going on. So I think one of the fascinating things about the way TAZO's approached this concept of regenerative is being very clear that it's more than the environmental aspects. So there's the soil health, there's carbon, there's biodiversity, nature, but there's also a clear focus on social fairness and really addressing the people in the communities that are in your value chain. I mean, fair trade is like an obvious way to see it, but you mentioned some of these other things that are integrated into the strategy, like working towards a living wage, supporting the livelihoods of those that most need the support, and then the 1% for the planet giving. And I'll just mention one of the interesting things about the 1% for the planet giving that I also find fascinating is just the alignment of that giving to each one of those priorities, and to be sure that the giving is fully reinforcing the approach that you have towards regenerative. So there's goals to be sure that there's the nonprofit partners, like for example, Rodale you mentioned, is helping build the capacity of regenerative farming, not just within your supply chain, but more broadly as well. So yeah, it's just a really, I think, mutually beneficial and reinforcing approach. So hats off to you guys for taking that initiative. I know that we just have a few minutes left, so I'm going to just pause with our conversation and let Melanie take a look at the questions and give us any of those that we're hearing at this point.
Sure. Thank you so much. I think based on Jami's earlier comment saying that regenerative is a new concept and having so many definitions, I think that's where a lot of the questions are stemming from. So if we could start with one for you, Jami, why are you requiring organic in your definition of regenerative for your products?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think organic principles and regenerative principles aren't far apart. I know water usage is probably one area where there is some, daylight between the two. I think especially when you look at talking about improving biodiversity or improving soil health and supporting biodiversity, without requiring organic, it becomes a lot harder. And I do definitely understand this is a sensitive subject for people, and I don't want to imply that I'm a farming expert. But the two, when they go hand in hand, it can become potentially easier to accomplish. But again, as I said, there's a huge amount of respect for those farmers for whom this is not their path.
Great, thank you. And another question, I think more for you, Cheryl, that dovetails on that is, what is the most common definition of regenerative?
Well, I mean, Jami covered this, that there isn't quite one definition out there, but there's been studies to look at how the term is being used, and there's definitely a clear emphasis on agricultural practices. And within that, it usually refers to things that are practices at the farm level that are working to improve soil health. And that's connected to things like carbon reduction and removals and better water cycles and those types of outcomes. As I kind of mentioned at the end there, that I think what's important is to just fully understand where the environmental and social issues are stemming from, and working not just to avoid or reduce those impact, but work to improve and get to kind of an overall beneficial outcome. And when we've talked about TAZO as the example here, I think what's interesting, as I'd said, is that when we took that close look, it was more than these soil health, like environmental types of considerations, but there was a lot more to it. So, so there's, when we start defining regenerative, it's might be a bit, while there's no one definition, it might be because might be unique for the way you apply it. And when we talked about TAZO's application of the term, we included kind of that social aspect as well as the environmental aspect. And Jami mentioned that the Regenerative Organic Alliance has a similar approach. And so we definitely are aligned in that regard.
Thank you. And we have another question here for Jami. How did you decide on your target date goals for your 7 pillars?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, for example, when you look at the human rights and fair trade goal, so we're saying by 2026, we want to be sure that 100% of ingredients meet our responsible sourcing and fair trade standards. Well, that is something that we had to understand. What are lead times for contracts? What are, how do you work backwards from that? When we thought about by, nourishing our natural resources, so our nature goal, we were talking about by 2023, so this is a very near-term goal, ensuring our priority materials, which for us are tree fiber, sugar, and tea, are sourced from suppliers that have eliminated deforestation from their supply chains. We felt more confident in setting a nearer term goal there because we were already partnering with the Rainforest Alliance on tea. We were partnering with FSC certified producers of paperboard, right? So this felt like that's achievable in 2023. So we wanted to, make sure that, SMART goals, right? Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. We wanted to be sure that it was achievable within the time frame that we were setting.
Great, thank you so much. I think this is for you, Cheryl. For a company looking to transition their sourcing to a regenerative supply, how do you suggest they start? Where do they begin?
Well, it may sound familiar because we've mentioned this a few times, that you do need to define what you're aiming towards. So not a clear definition on what regenerative is. So being sure that you understand what that means for your supply chain is the starting point. And that may require taking a close look at what the issues may be sure that whatever definition you take is really addressing those issues in an effective way to have a meaningful outcome in the end. So we kind of used this example already, that if there are social issues in your supply chain, but you use a definition that's solely focused on soil health, is it truly regenerative if you haven't alleviated some of the the worst things that are happening to the people that are managing that land? So just being very thoughtful about knowing what you're aiming towards is one of the first places to start. And then, of course, working very closely with your supply chain, knowing where they're starting at to know where you need to go is kind of the next bit of work. And that's quite often quite involved.
Thank you. I know we're getting almost to the half hour. Is there anything further that either of you want to say as part of a summary?
I would just express enormous gratitude for the Pure Strategies team for supporting us through this whole journey. I know it's only beginning, really. It's already, felt enormously exciting to try this. This is something new in tea, but I do recognize how vital it is for each company that's considering taking steps like this. I would just encourage them to start. Just start. We need everybody working together to really address this climate crisis that we're in, and regenerative is a huge tool to get there.
That was really well said, Jami. The only thing maybe I'd add to that is the reason why we had this webinar is to inspire other people to start taking those steps and using examples like TAZO and the information we shared today as a way to help you think about how you could take those steps forward and start making that progress. So Jami, really appreciate your time today. It was super to connect on this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm really, really grateful. Thank you, everyone.
Well said for both of you. Well, that is all the time that we have for today. We hope that you enjoyed our conversation on TAZO's regenerative approach. Thank you, Jami, so much. Thank you, Cheryl, for your time and insights today. Be sure to check our website or sign up for our newsletter for details about our next webinar. Our website also offers additional resources that might be of use for your work, or feel free to reach out to Cheryl directly. We look forward to connecting with you again or having you attend another Pure Strategies webinar in the near future. Thank you for joining us. Stay well, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks so much.